This podcast shines light on strong and talented women who excel and persevere in life while bathing in abundant self-love. So if you're ready to keep it real, level up in all your inner work, creative business, and community impact, then you've come to the right place because we provide you with content that helps your soul glow and your mind grow. Thank you for pressing play. Let's dive in.
Waiting be this one like this. Been through many things, many gist. Oh, I still find my peace, mother. Oh, but they do like say me, I know they see. Like say I know the year. Which kind person be this? Oh, waiting be this one like this. Been through many things, and like I hate Genesis. I be dealing with frenemies. Survivor, me unique. Money chaser, faster than a bullet, flying like a rocket.
Hey, STUK family, it's Brett again with another solo episode. And this episode, it's going to be a bit of a heavier episode due to the fact that one of my very favorite artists recently passed, but his death it kind of like opened a doorway to discuss something that I've wanted to discuss for a very long time. So this episode is about the significance of justice for Mobad. His name was Mobad. And just his significance in ending artist abuse. You know, I think that we have a long way to go in ending artist abuse. I think that it is, a small step, but a step in the right direction of forward motion and progress. And I really wanted to dive into it because as a company, we are against artist abuse. We are for creating safe spaces for girls and women to create in and to, be treated with respect as artists and as creators. So, this is an interesting topic to dive into. So I hope you grab a glass of water, a glass of wine, a cup of tea, whatever is going to make you feel cozy and like diving into a really deep conversation. So first I want to discuss about Mobad, about who he was and why he is significant in the fight against ending artist abuse. And then I'm going to discuss what is artist abuse, because apparently people seem a bit confused about that. Either they're confused or just want to be ignorant and want to keep abusing artists. I'm not really sure what it is, but for me and in my life and on this platform, like, it no longer stands. So I'm going to break it down very clearly because it's something that's no longer going to stand in my life. And I hope that it will no longer stand, in the lives of artists who I am surrounded with. So, okay, let's talk about Mobad first of all. So Mobad stands for Mo, Bright, and Destin. And he went by Mobad Imole, and he is Nigerian. And within Nigeria, his tribe was Yoruba. So he went by Imole, which means light in Yoruba. And he was exactly that, like just such a profound, dynamic, and beautiful light. I think it's also important to note that he was only 27 when his life was taken. I found his song Peace at the beginning of this year. And if you've been listening to this podcast and the past episodes, then you know that this year I've been through it. I've really been struggling with artist abuse in my own life from really all ends of the spectrum, from family to frenemies to, just external community that doesn't even know me that well, but feels like they have a right to judge me, on and on. So I came across his song Peace on YouTube, and I was just like immediately like, oh my God, this is it. Like, I feel like I resonate with, this message. I feel like he understands what I and just other artists are going through right now. And it just brought so much light and life back into my heart and back into my art. And I would play it every morning before going to my art studio. And a lot of the times I'd play it just on repeat as I was doing my morning yoga sessions. And, I still do, because the light that is that song will never die. And I think that the light that he was and is will never die. So it's strange because I have so many similarities to him. And I resonate so deeply with his story. And a lot of his story came out after death. So he was a Gemini, like I am, and also like Tupac was. His story also very deeply mirrors the story of Tupac. And I'm also Nigerian on both sides of my family, and on my dad's side of Yoruba descent. So, I had very strong like ancestral ties to like him and his message and what happened to him. And it's just like his music was all about peace and joy and love and light and self-love, because he loved himself so much. And I think that that was just the cause of a lot of the issues he had too, because people respond to self-love in very, very strange ways during these times. So, when he was alive, he was with this record label, and the record label called Marlians. It was actually also it doubled as a drug gang. And the main guy who ran this record label, named Naira Marley, he actually only moved to Nigeria around 2017, and he lived in London before then. So, this Marlian's record company, once he wanted to step away from it because there was a lot of violence in it, because it wasn't in alignment with his message and his mission, they chose to bully him and attack him once he stepped away from it. And he was like assaulted, he was abused, he was broken down physically and mentally by them. But it's just like, similar to Tupac's story with Suge Knight and Death Row Records, it's like, well, what really was this Marlian's record label? And it's very clear that they had, there were gang ties, and the gang in London has government ties, and they also have government ties in Nigeria. And he was forced by them to, through a government organization that Naira Marley was the ambassador of, ironically, he was forced to like take these injections. So like Naira Marley was the ambassador of an anti-drug coalition that's connected with the government in Nigeria. And it's really just like a front, because they essentially it's not an anti-drug. They were forcing drugs on people, and I think it was like used to run drugs, I think like through Nigeria, I think the UK, who knows how far up it goes and how far out it goes. But when all this was going on, Mobad was crying out for help. Like, if you go to his Twitter, he's been for about a year talking about how, the experience of all the attack and bullying and mental abuse, physical abuse that he's endured has left like scars on his heart. And that he's just, he was literally crying out for help and nobody really listened. And I definitely understand that because, for this last year, maybe last 2 years, I've been on like a repeat record talking about how people have been attacking me too, just like not physically, but mentally, absolutely. And, and I've talked about how, I've experienced harassment, I've experienced bullying, I've experienced slander and gossip, and he experienced a lot of those same things. Especially like with gossip, that Marlene's records also, like how they abused him mentally was they would say that he like had mental health issues. They said he was unstable. They said that like he was unable to do shows so that people would stop booking him, and it would like fuck with his money. And I experienced like a lot of similar things like that. I mean, that's what my family and ex-friends, did behind my back. They were talking about my mental health when I have a company that's, for bettering mental health and for healing mental health. But yeah, they just would spread lies about his mental health not being good and him being crazy and insane. And I've had those exact same rumors spread about me. And once a few of those rumors start going, just the way that our society is now with cancel culture, it just like spreads like a wildfire. And that's why like cancel culture is very dangerous. Like, it's not something to even like joke about anymore, because it literally can end careers. And now this is a strong example about how it can actually end a life. So because they started spreading like these rumors about, well, he's mentally unstable, he's this and that, people started believing that here and there and weren't really listening to his cries for help. And he really tried to wave a red flag, like, hey, this is what's going on with me is not okay, but nobody would really listen. So like about a week or so after his death, evidence started pouring out, mainly on Twitter, thanks to the hashtag Justice for Mobad. And videos were shared, calls were shared, like so many people were just dropping evidence. And he's just such a brilliant Gemini, similar to Tupac, like a very like a prophetic kind of nature. And he foresaw a lot of what was happening and what, was ultimately going to happen to him. So he passed messages through his music, he passed messages through his Twitter, he passed messages in any way that he could. And then he also like had everything, he kept receipts, he had video content of what happened to him, about like the injections that the government organization was giving to him. So that was leaked. And then other people who supported him leaked videos of like just what happened along the way. So as it was just so random, like that one day his death was announced, and at first they tried to be like, oh, it was like maybe like suicide, or then they said that it was like an ear infection, and then none of that made sense. So evidence started pouring out, and we find out that his family actually buried him. But then before that, it was very sketchy. Like the last place he was seen was a hospital where a nurse gave him an injection. He collapsed on the ground. And we know this because there was like two eyewitnesses who saw him at the hospital and were interrogated. And so they're like, he was there, and they said that he was fine, but he looked like agitated, and then he went into the room to get his injection, and he collapsed on the floor. It was all like very fast, and then they rushed him out. And then there's like footage of him passed out in a car with some guys, like friends of his, who like a week before were with him, signing off for his Range Rover that he was about to get. Like these are supposedly friends, and they took him to the hospital, and you could tell that he was unconscious in the video, but like he wasn't dead. So then after that, that's like the last kind of video we see before he's then in a casket. And sorry, trigger warning for this. This is a little like dark. I shouldn't even say a little dark. This is a lot dark. So if you are kind of, wary about such things, just, maybe you want to hop off. Maybe this is not the podcast for you, but I need to dive into what artist abuse is full scale. So we're going to do it. So yeah, so then he, the next thing we see via evidence, is this picture of him in a casket that's way too small for him. His neck is bent all the way, I think, to the left, but like on his shoulder, basically, because he couldn't even fit in the shoddy casket that they put him in. And then they give him some like cheap burial in their like backyard, the dad side of his family. And it was weird because like you could see that he clearly wasn't dead from the time, when he was passed out after the hospital to then the casket. So it was just very strange, and nobody understood what was happening. And then so they buried him, and they announced his death, and everybody was confused. But it didn't sit well with the public. It didn't sit well with his fans. And where they messed up was like, this was a global superstar. He has fans all over the world. He's traveled everywhere. He's traveled to like Atlanta. He's traveled to London. He's traveled, like everywhere. He's been around, and people love his music. He's a light. And so the world started to get angry, and for a week, everyone just was up in arms and decided to protest because everyone was like, we need an autopsy. We don't understand this. Why was he buried like this? Why would a so-called family bury someone like this? And yeah, so essentially like they buried him unconsciously. Like he was not dead when he was buried. And so basically, the family, in collusion with the government, via the hospital and a government agent, and he even said, like, on his Twitter and on a Instagram live, he was like, if I die, then Naira Marley is to blame. But when Gemini say stuff, like, it's also like he's saying that, but it goes much deeper than that. He's like, look into Naira Marley when he says that. And so, and if you look into it, then Naira Marley is just like a government puppet, and it goes way higher up than just Naira Marley, And so who knows, like, I'm sure everybody was paid off very handsomely by the government. his father had a hand in it too, because he was the one who rushed to bury him within I guess 12 hours, because that was when the injection was supposed to like wear off, because he was buried alive essentially. And so, and this was a form of torture and abuse. And it's very dark. And and to me it's like everyone who was at that funeral essentially had a hand in it, because why would anybody be okay with a global superstar being dumped in a backyard in a coffin that doesn't fit with his neckband? Like, everyone is complicit, like, who is there. I don't understand why there would be any dispute in that. Like, that's just unconscionable. Like, what that just should never have happened if you're not in on it. I don't really even see how there's arguing your way out of that. But whatever. So, yeah, everyone was protesting around the world for a week to get him, they wanted him to have an autopsy, and they wanted him to be brought up, from that grave. And so it took a really long time because, of course, the police, the government, everyone was delaying because they all had a hand in it. And they only brought him up after a week after they were sure that he was dead. So when they finally brought him up, there's also video footage of there being like fresh blood. It's like, and that means, it's red in the grave. And if he wasn't buried alive, that there would not be fresh blood in the grave. Like, that's just scientifically impossible. So, and there's doctors and scientists who have broken down what it means when there is fresh blood in the grave. You can look in the hashtag to find more on that. But or you can look up Mobad autopsy, that hashtag, and you'll find it there also. But yeah, that was the very traumatizing and disturbing part about it to me, because that was like confirmation that yes, in fact, he was buried alive, and by his own family. So it was really like a group assassination. And the only person in his family who did not really have a part in it was his biological mother. She doesn't live with that side of the family. She didn't, I think that she was estranged from her son because of the dad for some reason, and his new wife. Not really sure what the details around that, but she lived some far away, and like she just didn't have a hand in it. So and she wasn't at the funeral. So so like people, like Burna Boy, industry people, DeVito, were sending her money, after the death, because it was just like horrible and tragic. And she told a lot of truths about what went on and what happened. She was talking about how they were giving him injections long before his death, and how the government like drug organization was actually, like shooting him up with things that were, affecting his health, his mental health, making him like see weird things or have weird dreams and not being able to sleep. And and she also said that when he was born, actually, that a prophetess that she went to said that she was going to have a son who came into this world for a purpose. And so she told a lot of truths, and the dad just kept spouting lies and wanting more money just from people, and it was just very disheartening and then very, very shady. So yeah, and it's crazy because like if there's blood in the grave. Like, he survived a long time underground before eventually passing away, and before they exhumed the body. And that's the part that really like shook me up. It was really hard for me to deal with, because first it's like I had to first mourn his like mysterious death, and no information being anywhere about it. Like, it was just like he died and there's no information about how or why or what. And then like a week later, after protesting, everyone protested for like a week, then there was like, okay, we understand what happened and why, but then it's like you have to mourn twice. So it was really just traumatic, I think, for everyone, especially if you are, if you know who he is as an artist, and then you're just like of the same lineage. It's just it was heartbreaking, very just heartbreaking. um so, I did some digging like on his Twitter, and I found that he actually started speaking out against the government and for like better governance in 2020. And he was against police brutality. And their police organization is called like SARS. It's like SARS. And so he protested for end SARS in Nigeria starting in 2020. And it's now come out that his wife's mother, so his mother-in-law, was actually a police officer, which just makes the whole thing way more shady. Like, clearly they had a hand in it, and I don't know why, people are even thinking that they're going to properly solve the case. And he believed in like the power of the people. He was like for the people in the streets, and he was for just like rising up and standing up for what's right. He was a freedom fighter, but he was also a pacifist. And so, yeah, you can see there's like evidence that he started speaking out then. And it's just like interesting, because I also in 2020, with George Floyd, I started speaking out, and actually, through STUK, started just like being active more, like, and exercising my advocacy. And I've talked on this podcast in previous episodes about how I feel like, my numbers have been manipulated, and a lot of people just think that I'm like, I don't know, some kind of like narcissist who just thinks she's better than she is, or something like that, and they always try to like talk about who I'm not and put me in my place. But he did that too, and his numbers are just like in no way like reflective of the global protests that came out in mass for him, the week after his death. And you can clearly see that his numbers were manipulated, across the board. But I believe that when you speak up, especially against police, yeah, your numbers get manipulated, you get blacklisted. And I've known this about myself for quite some time, but I don't really speak on it because very few people believe me. And it's just like pointless a lot of the time, I feel like. And I think it's also important to note that, like, you can't be blacklisted by association, like by supporting somebody who's blacklisted. Like, I had a lot of people turn their backs on me because of that, and because of just cancel culture. And, it's just like, that's not what it is. And it's just like, if more people would speak out or take a stand for something, anything, and not be so passive, then, blacklisting, it wouldn't be so quote unquote scary. Like, it wouldn't be such a stain on your career. It's such a, a horrifying thing as people think that it is, if we stood up in unison. But yeah, you can clearly see that his his numbers were manipulated. And I think where they fucked up was that they forgot that they manipulated his numbers, and that he has this like ginormous global following. So now all eyes are just like on this case, like, well, what's happening, and what the, like, he's still although they have exhumed his body, it's been weeks and there's still no autopsy results. Like, so of course, like something, there was foul play. And I do think his body was defiled, because it's just like there's been no zero word about the autopsy, and the government has kept his body for weeks now. And this global superstar has been just like not allowed the right to have a proper burial. And I think that there is no coincidence that a young Black male artist whose number one single is Peace, and whose first album was Light, and whose last album was Blessed, was killed, because now it is a murder case. They because there's been so much global outrage, the police can't even say that it wasn't a murder, although they tried that at first. But they underestimated his numbers. They underestimated how outraged people would be. So now they have to address the case, and they've been trying to like change the narrative and like make it seem like he was just so sad and abused and like out of his mind and all of this. But he had a very strong mind, and he was deeply in love with like himself, his inner peace. And similar to me, like I feel the same way. Like although you can be like attacked and be going through abuse and going through all these things, that doesn't mean that people can take your inner peace. Like, that doesn't mean that they can steal your inner light, especially when it shines that brightly. And he was just like a man of deep, deep faith also. I think very similar to how Tupac, had deep faith as well. And and he walked in that, and he was just like he brought light and joy everywhere he went. And sometimes when you shine so brightly, people want to drag that light down. Sometimes like the light is so bright that it also attracts like the darkness, like the moths and the reptilians and all of that. And so he had a lot of that. One of his songs starts like, "Many enemies, they follow me." And I resonate with that deeply. Like like for so much of my life, like I had people who claimed, that they were friends and for me, around me, while they would always like just talk behind my back and really just prey on my downfall while wanting to like suck up all my light and be jealous of me at the same time. And I think that it's just like we're in such a time of deep spiritual warfare as well. And I feel like this is definitely what that was. In America, they didn't want Tupac to speak out. He was silenced early on because he had like prophetic messages, and that's not welcomed in capitalist society. In capitalist society, they don't want you to be in joy, they don't want you to be in peace, they certainly don't want you to have self-love, because all of these things like crumble capitalism. What would they have if you weren't like a slave to capitalism? And so it was just like he was dragged just of malicious jealousy on all ends. Like his father was actually a musician, and in an embarrassing, I think, BBC interview that came out recently, he like sings some of his lyrics. Like, dude, we all saw how you buried him on the land that he bought you, with his neck bent in a coffin that didn't fit. Like, are you really serious? But he was just like trying to get sympathy and trying to get more money. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I taught him like what I know. And I know that well. Like I have a mother who claims to be an artist too, or was, or whatever." And there's always weird jealousy with that. And it's like, and he also said, his father also said that he's like, I'm his friend or whatever. And it was just on some like weird frenemy type energy. And that's what Mobad sings about that a lot too, just having frenemies all around. And apparently his father was one of his largest frenemies. Um, and I think like it's just so interesting because jealousy seems to be the biggest pandemic right now. And, and every time I say jealousy, I feel like people are like, oh, who does she think she is, thinking everyone is jealous of her? But that's not what it is. It's like people are very jealous right now of artists, I think. Even sometimes other artists are jealous of other artists. Who are shining brightly, who have love and light for what they do and passion for what they do, and are making new things and having innovative ideas, because a lot of people have run dry of, innovation and light, and because they're so plugged into the capitalistic system, they don't know how to be present. They don't know how to be here now in the present moment and get jealous of anyone, who can. And it's such an interesting dynamic. Like, I think just as artists, like people talk so much shit about artists, especially people who are plugged into the matrix or the capitalistic system, and but at the same time are just so like jealous about artists as well. So it's a strange paradox. And I think, maybe you're thinking like, well, why is this story of like something that happened in Nigeria, important to me as an American, or I don't know, wherever you are in the world. But I think that it's important to remember that America, Nigeria, Ghana, India, the locations that we speak about on this podcast, they were all colonized by the British. They were all colonized into capitalistic systems. And they are all on the same timeline of late stage capitalism. And, and when we understand this, we can also understand that unity is community internationally. And I think we can understand more so the importance of unity consciousness. Because like we are all connected, and it's important to remember that, like, and that we can all resonate with each other's stories. That's why sharing stories is so important, and especially sharing stories through art. Like Mobad left so much evidence through his art, and that is power. He told his story through art, because he wasn't able to, his life was under so much threat that he wasn't really able to tell it in other ways. And also I think that late stage capitalism is such, oh my God, it's such a breeding ground for just like jealousy and hatred of those who can get it on their own and get money outside of the system. And, people who literally just are able to do what we love. And people who are miserable in their jobs, who can't find joy within, find that so threatening. And so I think that this was definitely done as a message. And I think that what happened in Mobad is disrespectful to every single artist, no matter the background, around the world. And it's just like, because of the way that they did him, like it caused so much pain for his tribe, for his just fans, for other artists in the Afrobeats industry. Just like it was, I think it felt like it's a threat. And it's like they don't want us to have joy. They don't want us to have peace. They don't want us to find community. Without these elements, capitalism just thrives, and Mobad, he just would say like, don't fold. And something he always would say is fun one need pressure. And that's like Nigerian slang for give them pressure. Like, and that's what he was just saying, like, don't fold, give them pressure, like, let them have it, don't fold to the system, don't fold to the haters, don't fold to the artist abuse, and keep pushing and keep chugging, and do what you keep doing, what you love, keep spreading joy and keep spreading peace and keep shining your light, no matter how they try to break it down, because they'll try to break it down. The more deeper we get into late stage capitalism. But I'm so thankful for his music and for finding it as at the time that I did. And I'm glad that although, like I didn't have much time listening to it while he was alive, but I'm so thankful, deeply thankful that I did, because music is healing and music is transformative. And I don't think that I, as an artist, would have been able to keep creating this year if it wasn't for his music and for his light. There were really two artists who really helped me push through that. And I'm just so, so thankful for the love, for the light, and for the legacy that Mohbad has left behind. Like his just bright and shining light will not go in vain, and it will always bring joy to my life. So with that said, I kind of want to get into the tactics of artist abuse, because a lot of people, a lot of normies out there, as I call them, muggles, if you will, don't seem to understand what artist abuse is. And this is also for artists who are inflicting abuse on other artists just out of jealousy, out of maybe you being in a slump in your own career, or maybe not being, maybe having an artist block or something like that, and finding a irrational need to be jealous of, another artist. But this is running rampant in our society now. And I just really wanted to address the topic, on this podcast, because Mohbad really, he did have a profound purpose, because now people are actually speaking about it and acting like it's not crazy to bring up. And so my goal isn't to shame anyone. It's not, that's not the purpose of this podcast ever. It's rather to shine a light of awareness on topics, so that abuse and evil and darkness in our society doesn't continue, and so that we can create more safe spaces for artists and for one another. Personally, I feel like I've been under fire for months and months. Honestly, for like 2 years now, I've been under fire. And it only got worse when announcing my solo art show. And, I was also attacked, emotionally, verbally harassed by family, with just the level up of my own career. And I think that family, family, like parents can only see you in a certain box, like they can only see you in a certain light. And it takes, I think, evolved parents, or definitely like evolved parents in their heart centers, to see your evolution and growth and love it. But a lot of parents don't have that ability and get extremely jealous, envious, weird when you elevate maybe beyond the position that they have had in life. And so, I think that it's hard enough to create and make a living off of art without abuse running rampant. So and just and staying in creative flow state is a huge deal, and hard enough without people trying to break that flow. and try to threaten that flow, because art, creative flow, artistic flow, whether you're drawing or painting or singing or dancing or whatever, it is pure bliss and it is pure peace. And so it's understandable why people get jealous of it, but that doesn't have to be. We can coexist in more peace if people just open their minds a little bit more, I think. And artists are actually light workers. Even if you create dark art, I believe that you are kind of a light worker, as an artist, because I don't know, you're shedding light on the topics of darkness, and so I think that it's just, yeah, it's just such a strange dynamic, and such a strange stage we're in the world right now. Like, even just like, just wars are starting up, with in Israel, free Palestine. But and this is just the beginning. Like, if you think that this is just something, Mobad's death is just something that happened in Nigeria, then you're definitely wrong. Or you think that this is a one-of situation, you're absolutely wrong. This is only coming to light because he was such a powerful celebrity and had such a following. But like, imagine how often this happens, to people who don't have a following in the millions. um it just, they took out the wrong person this time. They fucked with the wrong one, and they also fucked with the wrong one fucking with me. So yeah, I'm going to go in on this. Let me cook. And I just really would like us all to be able to be like free and safe, and be able to express ourselves and create, and not feel attacked for it all the time. Because as of late, every time I put out something like light and joy filled, I just feel so attacked, and I'm really over it at this point. So I've made some points about what artist abuse is, and I'm gonna go down my list and kind of break them down, and also draw parallels to Mobad's case as well. So, number one, I have control plays. And I think control plays, I mean, I think people just like to act out a scenarios of control over artists, because we are so free and we have such free, light, dynamic spirits. And so yeah, I think they're just like control plays, or power plays, I guess you can also call them. And what is that? That's basically like planting seeds of fear and doubt in the mind of artists. That's inciting fear, putting fear on artists' dreams, on artists' plans, goals, and thus diminishing them, and making the ladder of belief harder for artists to climb up. And I've experienced this on so many levels, from my family, and almost every person in my family, just like shooting down, everything that I want to do creatively. And it gets exhausting. It's a form of mental abuse. It's a form of emotional abuse. So I think that, like, when this happens, as artists, it's important for us to remember that, like, fear is not real, and it's just an illusion. What is it? False evidence appearing as real. That's, an acronym for fear. And most artists don't have fear. And I think, or I shouldn't say most. I'll say some. I don't really have it. It's not really something that's stood in the way of my life, and because of that, people like to try to fuck with me even more, like, and try to push my buttons and poke me, like, ooh, let's try to make her scared. Let's try to make her fuck up, and let's prey on her downfall in these ways and this way, and so I think that it's important as artists to know that, like, yeah, it's not real. It's just a game that people like to play, to make you stumble on your path. And it makes artists, I think, have to really work through fear barriers that maybe weren't even there in the first place. Like, it makes us have to jump over other people's fears and other people's aversions to what it is that we are, to what it is that we are doing, and to our path. So I think some like action steps to take against fear as artists are affirmations. Positive self-talk is great too. I think Reiki works as well, just for like moving around energy, shifting and up leveling your energy. But there are a ton of ways to move through fear barriers. And I think another like control play or power play comes from people who are what in what like the book The Artist Way calls quote unquote crazy makers. And these are just people, what like Julia Cameron, the author of The Artist Way. If you haven't read that book as an artist, you definitely should. It's like the artist Bible. It's amazing. But it helped. It definitely changed my life for sure. But yeah, crazy makers are just people who try to block your path and to try to put fear in your mind and in your heart, and just try to like fuck up where you're heading and where you're going. Like haters basically. And they just try to like make a mess of your path. And so like when there's literally no problem, they can create little messes and little interferences just to like fuck with you and to fuck up your creative flow. And if you're another artist doing this to an artist, I have zero respect for you. Like, I literally do. Like, you already know what it's like to have people who do this. And just because you're feeling insecure as an artist doesn't mean you have the right to inflict it on anyone else. So, second point, we have brainwashing or mental programming, or I guess we could say negative conditioning as well. So programming in the minds of like children who have yet to become artists is a big part of this. I think it's like from the age of 1 through 7 that the mind is most malleable, and that's when your like programming really sets in. And so it's really important what you're telling kids at that age. That's why we have the Little Hardest program within STUK Designs, for shaping the minds of children before negative programming really sets in. And, we do that through positive affirmations, through mixing art with like meditative activities, and really just like boosting children's confidence before they get to the age where society kind of like down talks like dreams essentially. But this negative programming can happen just continuously well beyond the ages of 7. And I think it can even continue on into adulthood, depending on the people that you are surrounding yourself with. Definitely, like within my family, there's just mental programming of artists can't make money. That's what they, love to program my brain with. And I think a lot of families do that. Like, that's not uncommon. Even in Mobad's music and in his songs, like he talks about how he was given money to go to school, but he chose music. He said he chose himself instead. And then he says, he's sorry to his dad and his mom because of that. But it's just like sometimes parents just don't understand. They say that art is not a real, quote unquote, real job, but ultimately it can make you far more money than like any 9 to 5 or probably anything that they're doing. So, it's important to detach from that brainwashing, that mental programming. I think friends can also later in life try to, mentally program you due to their own conditioning. And they can say the same things like, oh, artists can't make money. Oh, this and that. Like, why would you do that? Why would you be an artist? Or why would you do that? This or that? Or and just have all these opinions or whatever. And artists really just don't need like opinions like that. If anything, like you should be respecting artists instead of like bombarding them with your unsolicited opinions about what it is that they are doing. Because like the very simple fact that artists are artists is an actual gift. Like the fact that we as artists have talent to write, to paint, to draw, to dance, to sing, to whatever the fuck it is, like that's a gift from the universe and it's a gift to be embraced. Like that light should be honored, not spat upon. And a lot of people try to like spit on it and like talk shit about it while at the same time feeling jealous, extremely jealous of it, because we as artists have a purpose, we have a path, and a lot of people are just confused and don't know what their purpose is, sometimes like their whole lives. So I think that that's a profound reason for jealousy of artists. And I think it's really important to distance yourself from anyone who down talks just like artists in general, art in general, art careers in general. Like that's very ignorant and it's not, it shouldn't be in my life. It's not welcome anymore. I had to cut out a lot of people who are just, I feel like we're in medieval ages in their minds about what it is that artists are and artists do. And in surrounding myself with more artists and in having more conversations with artists and making more friends who are artists, it really like was healing to my soul and it's been so transformative. So yeah, just like cut those people out, I say, if you're an artist. Like you don't need that. None of us need that. And it's like a scary thing at first, but your vibe will always attract your tribe. And sometimes you have to take a risk. If you want more, if you want better for yourself, if you want higher in your career. So we have next, number 3, manipulation. And this is like being fake nice to an artist, pretending to like their work, to gain something, whether that's like clout, collaboration, money, or you're just like a vampire sucking their inner love flow, which I've had a lot of that happen. And like when people just want to take and never give back. And I think I've experienced this with like people having like fake interest in my art, just who really want to just date me, or like false promises and lies being told to me about like how they can help me and my career, because I think that that's it, like energy is currency, right? Like, and peace is currency, and artists have a lot of that. And a lot of times people get so excited about like what they feel around artists and what artists have the power to bring that they forget that also requires follow through, I think. And yeah, and I think when you just like only take, it's just very diminishing to the power of artists. It's really like take in a very vampiric way, taking power away from artists. So I think that a solution for this, like as artists, would be to continuously call your power back. I do this like daily via meditation. But yes, calling your power back is so important because people like to suck it a lot. Because power is something that artists have a lot of, like to make something out of nothing, to create form out of imagination is power, and people want that power. So therein lies again another reason for jealousy. But all right, so next we have number 4, and this is judgment. And I think that judgment really occurs when people operate within groupthink. There's a solo episode I have on groupthink within this podcast. I recommend if you don't understand what that is. But yeah, groupthink mentality is very dangerous. It leads to cancel culture. It leads to how dangerous cancel culture is. And I think that just people are so judgmental about the lives and lifestyles of artists, and they want to know what artists are doing and like where they're going and like who they're with or whatever like that, and then they like to talk shit about it. And especially when artists don't align with social norms. But it's honestly so twisted, because a lot of the times people, again, I'm gonna keep honing in on this word, it's because people are jealous of it. People are jealous of artists' ability to break away from social norms, to do their own thing. Do you, as is a STUK slogan. But it's just like, and it's so infuriating to me, because it's so backwards. It's like, you wish you could do this. You wish you had the guts, the courage to do it. But a lot of people don't have the courage to break away from the system or to do their own thing. And so it's easier to just judge and to talk shit about other people. So solution for judgment, I think, again, is just kind of like distancing yourself from people who do that, and from people who have small, ignorant, judgmental minds, because who needs that? All right, so next we have number 5, which is financial abuse. And I think that this is running rampant within the art community. I think that it's a topic that a lot of people are wary of, but I'm going to go in on it a little bit. So I think that financial abuse when it comes to artists is like asking artists who clearly, as a career choice, do art for a living, like have a website, are selling their art, and then you decide to ask them, well, how do you make money? Like, because that's just, it's such a condescending question. I can't tell you how many times people have asked me that, and it's just like, I'm an artist, I do art. Like, what? And it also comes with like doubting whether artists are actually selling or not. That's none of your business. Like, nobody likes a pocket watcher. Stay out of my pocketbook. And it's just like, do you ask lawyers how they make money after they say that they're a lawyer? Or do you ask doctors that? Because lawyers, doctors, and artists all, create a service for humanity. And I don't really see the difference. I don't at all see the difference. And if you do, I think you need to elevate your mind and expand it. So, also, I think financial abuse for artists is lowballing an artist's worth, like making them seem like, or making them kind of believe that they can't price their work a certain way, or like their prices are too high just because you maybe can't afford them. And it's just like, getting in their head and in their financial business, like where you have no business and you don't need to be concerned with. So I think that I've experienced a lot of even like curators trying to like lowball my work and having to stand on my prices and be like, no, this is what my work costs and this is what I'm selling it for. And then like another thing is another way it can be used is like with food. I think like obviously we all know the term like starving artists, but I've had family literally try to, at points when I haven't had funds, that I really need or whatever, they would then, just like not help me with food or whatever, like make me scrounge for food, like I'm less than them while they, eat like kings and queens. They'll make me be a starving artist to kind of starve me out and like try to force me back into a 9 to 5 world, because that's a control tactic as well. So I mean, financial abuse there's just so many different ways. And I think all artists have different stories of artist abuse and like the different ways that they've experienced it. So I'm not saying that this is like some end all be all list. I'm just saying that this is what I've experienced a lot of. And maybe you resonate, maybe you don't, but yeah. So number 6, I think, is gossip and slander. So I guess, I don't understand why really, but people don't seem to understand how dangerous gossip is, how it can lead to cancel culture. Um, but an artist's name is essentially our work. So when you're dragging an artist's name, talking behind their back, that's really messed up because you're then also messing with their clientele, their ability to make sales, their social media following, their presence online, their brand. And this can lead to artists having to isolate depending on what rumors are spread. It can be very just like damaging emotionally for artists to have to deal with. And it for me it went very deep, like on many levels as deep as Mobad's, like just the way that people were speaking on my name in the past, and really just out of sheer ignorance and sheer jealousy. And it was just like, speaking on literally what they knew nothing about, and aspects of my life that are no business of theirs to even be speaking about, people of my past, who I in no way like associate myself with anymore. But yeah, so I think like that if people are gossiping and slandering your name, yeah, you got to cut ties. And it doesn't matter who those people are, even if they're members in your family, if they're speaking on your name, which is your brand, which is your company, and that's where you're trying to build and elevate up from. Yeah, you got to cut the cord, pull the plug. So number 7 is kind of connected to this, but it's bullying and harassment. So Mobad experienced bullying harassment like on a physical level, like people were actually attacking him physically, and assaulting him. For me, it wasn't that far, but the harassment was more so passive, like Americans are. um, and so, yeah, I don't know. For whatever reason, I feel like artists painting in peace, artists who are in flow state and happy in that state, that disturbs a whole lot of people, a whole lot of egos, who are not at peace. And often those egos will attack you. And they'll try to create interference in any way to break up your creative flow. And for most of this year, I've been experiencing this. I've been attacked via like text message, via phone, like just trying to disrupt what I'm working on, from family in person. I've had people stalking my social media accounts, just really sending really gross negative energy towards me. I've had to do so much like cleansing and like aura cleansing, and I think that that's like the solution that you have to to do as an artist. You have to realign after such attacks happen. You can chakra realign with like yoga, with Reiki, sound bowls, grounding, touching grass, things like that. We have a whole podcast episode about 17 ways to ground yourself in revolutionary times. I highly recommend that. But yeah, it's super annoying, and they like, I think the goal is to really try to get in your head. Mobad talked a lot about how people were trying to like make him go crazy, and people were trying to make me go crazy too. But I have very strong mental health and very strong spiritual practices. So, I am still strong, but it's just like I'm not some superhuman fucking transformer robot. Like, I have feelings, and I don't deserve to be attacked, harassed, bullied, on social media, in person, whatever the case. So while yes, always clear your energy after any harassment or bullying happens, I think also just distancing yourself from people who inflict that sort of evil, also, because I don't know, that ignorance is just like, I don't even understand adult bullies, to be honest with you, but there are a lot of them. So number 8 is blocking artists from creating. We all deal with this as artists on different levels. Mine is probably more extreme than some, but at the same time, most artists are just so ashamed to speak out about the abuse that they have endured along their career paths, that who really knows, So the main thing that I've experienced is like, my family, like growing up using, like taking, quote unquote, confiscating my art supplies as like punishment, which is just like so wrong on so many different levels, because like when you're an artist, like creating is like your piece, it's like a part of you, and to like take another artist's supplies is just, I can't even tell you how wrong and ignorant that is. But nonetheless, I've experienced it numerous times, mainly from my mother and my grandmother, like taking things that didn't belong to them, like my paintbrushes, like my paints, not allowing me to create or paint in really like anywhere. Like, so it was just very hellish, because they wouldn't let me be who I meant to be, what my purpose is. Like not allowing artists to to draw or have the freedom to draw or paint in your household. That feels like a kind of death for an artist. And it's like a kind of like slavery almost. And to be separated from our work as an artist is very painful. And like for 2 years, I've talked about on this pod before, my art was locked in a storage unit by my mother. But my family loves to play games with like my work and where it can be and where I can create. And it's just really manipulative and very messed up. And I don't know why it's like okay in their minds at all, because to me it's extremely evil. But yeah, it happened. It's just like it's been a part of artist abuse for me, for sure. Number 9, I think like just games in general, which that's basically a game, what I was just talking about, but like playing little like reindeer games with people, like making false offers to artists, false promises, scams, creating drama in groups of friends. I've had that experience, for sure, frenemies. Like in this podcast, I've also discussed that I had a girl try to break up my own family, like through using my brother, and then also break up my family of friends, and by just spreading lies about me and just being really cruel and evil. So, and it's just like, it's just a way to play with your emotions and thus interfere with your work and interfere with your flow, so that you have to you have this barrier of like emotional trauma and drama that you have to step over because they created it and inflicted it. So yeah. And then number 10, like I've probably said 25 times in this podcast now, just plain old jealousy and hate. Cause yeah, I feel like that's just like the basis of what artist abuse stems from. And I don't understand why people don't know that they're haters of artists who have done anything that I've listed, but apparently they don't. Um, but yeah, it's just like when people don't want you to have or experience joy, the joy that art brings, the joy, the inner joy and love flow that artists innately have. It makes absolutely no sense why other people wouldn't want other people to experience joy, but yeah, it happens a lot. Happiness triggers people, other people's joy triggers people. It's extremely toxic. And like I've said before, if you're an artist hating on other artists, being jealous of other artists because you're not where they're at in their career, because you're creatively blocked, because you don't got the juices flowing like they got the juices flowing, whatever it is, stop it. Stop it right now. It's not forward progression. It's not healthy. It's not helpful. All right. And lastly, number 11. I kind of, did I say, I don't think I didn't say attacks. I'd say just like emotional attacks. That's what I should call it. Like more so emotionally, of the emotionally abusive range of attacks. And this is when people try to like activate your anxiety, or maybe knowing that you've dealt with in your life depression or trauma in some sort, and they want to activate it. And so they do that with like yelling, or just creating like scenarios where you're stressed out, where you have to like just engage with them because they're being erratic, and then it activates your anxiety, and then it creates blocks for you in your flow. Artists require peace to create, and people like to disrupt that peace because most people do not have peace. Most people will never have peace because they don't know how to still their minds. And when you create in flow state, you are in a place of stillness of mind. It's very zen. And, strong egos don't like that. And so another like way I think people like to attack is to kind of build you all the way up to tear you down. A lot of the times, it's like a game that people like to play. So I guess it could also fit in the games category, but where people like to hype you up and be like, "Oh my God, your art is so beautiful. Oh my God, like you create so much beautiful stuff," and then they go behind your back and then tear you down. And then when you want to like speak on it or be like, "Hey, that maybe wasn't cool," then they'll either like ignore you or tear you down even more. And it's just like a game. It's a stupid attack game. So yeah, let's not do that. And yeah, I think that's basically, my list and the gist of what I think are artist abuse tactics. So I don't know if like, I obviously don't think that just like this one podcast will change and end artist abuse completely in the world, but hopefully in my own life and hopefully for this company, people will have a more clear perspective of what it is. So, and this is, this whole entire podcast is also, it's just dedicated to Mobad because you know, I think why it just messed with me on such a deep level is because, like, here, obviously I didn't experience physical brutality in the way he did. I wasn't buried alive, but literally people tried to bury my company alive. They tried to bury my talents alive. They tried to bury my reputation, my name alive, like, and just wanted me to watch and sit and do nothing about it as they like dragged me and my name and everything that I've worked through the mud. And I've had my numbers manipulated. I've had my social media shadow banned. I've been hit on all angles and all ends. But I'm still here and I'm still in peace and I'm still able to be so full of love and so full of light, and I'm not afraid, and I'm just so like thankful to be able to be in this place despite all that I've been through, and to have this same heart despite all the ways that people have tried to attack it. Because and that's what this company is really about. It's about shining a light in these dark times that we're in. And I think that we can all be lights in times of darkness, in this time of darkness, in times of war and just like tragically unexplainable things that are happening. So yeah, I don't think this is a one of incident of artist abuse. I think this is like or the most terrible, casualty of capitalism artist abuse incident that I've ever heard. I don't think I've been affected by someone's passing, like this since George Floyd. But I was able to move through it through art and I created art, for Mobad. I've been creating a lot, and it's been helping me move through the grief of his passing. And I've been spending a lot of time in nature and grounding. And podcast in and of itself is an art form. Sharing your voice and sharing your story is an art form. And it's one that Mobad, loved dearly. So I hope that you guys keep sharing your stories. I hope that this sheds some light on what artist abuse is, and I hope it can cut through some of the artist abuse in your own life if you're an artist. I hope that if you're listening to this and you're someone who is ignorant of like the fact that artist abuse is even going on, or of the fact that maybe you have even done some of these things, I hope you maybe can be inspired to, stop, to chill out, to add more peace to your life. Because there is no peace for the wicked, and there's a lot of wicked out here right now. And we should, oh God, the world needs peace more than anything, and it's no coincidence that, they wanted to take out somebody whose main mission and message was peace. So with that said, let's end with some affirmations. I wish you so much peace. Remember that you are peace. Peace is always within you, in the center of your heart. I wish you so much love. Remember that you are love, that you have this limitless light about you and within you, and that you can transcend any obstacle, any challenge, any trauma, and any drama by tapping into your own inner love flow and in your own inner light. And you always have more strength than you think that you have, even when the mind tricks you into believing that you don't sometimes. Remember that fear is just an illusion, and that you can break through it. Shatter it like a glass ceiling. Keep rising, keep rising, keep rising. And until the next episode, I will see you guys next time. I love you so much. Bye.
Hi everyone, hope you liked that episode. We are all about preaching self-love and empowering women and girls around the world. Support us in our journey as we provide art supplies and many more resources to girls in Ghana through our two programs, the Fly Girl Initiative and Little Artists. We are also working on hosting more Color for a Cause events, as well as our No Filter school tours. Your help will enable this organization to work on bettering the lives of people around the world. For more information, visit our website www.stukdesigns.org.